Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Rebecca Lee from Maybe It's Mercury, and today I'm talking once again with Robert Smith-Haldt, who is a veteran of chelation and lead and mercury, and knows a lot about it. And we've had some interesting discussions before. And he's a musician in Norway, and there's been a toxic exposure incident in Norway involving some guest workers, right? And
Polish.
he wanted it's like it's a big deal in Norway, I guess, and is in the news everywhere. So he'd like to talk about that. And I think it's pretty interesting. So tell me about it, Robert.
Well, it's interesting you say it's a big deal in Norway because it was in the main news, but it should be a big deal, but it isn't. It was in the main news and it disappeared really quick.
Yeah.
And I think it should be in the main news for two reasons. One is that in the story, it comes out the doctor who treated these Polish guest workers doesn't really know, what she's doing. She admits that they don't really know what they're doing. And the other one is the obvious thing that, in this modern day and age, what kind of company does something like that?
Why don't you explain to people what happened? Because, you're talking to people who never know anything about it.
Right. So last year, 9 guest workers from Poland were hired into a company to do some upkeep work. And while they were there, the management decided to also use them to clean a tank. This company, won't name names, but this company's specialty is purifying zinc. And zinc contains, among other things, in the zinc ore contains, among other things, mercury and lead. And they are world famous for their procedure for removing that safely. And so not releasing it into the environment. And how they do that, I don't really know. I've tried to find out, but anyway, people use their process the world, around the whole world.
So
And
they invented a process for disposing of the waste.
yeah, for purifying the zinc and taking out the heavy metals.
Okay.
And
But you don't know what they do with the metals when they get them out.
well, no, it doesn't say anything about that. But what happened was they used tanks somehow to store it, or I don't know exactly what happened, but they had to clean these tanks, and the tanks hadn't been cleaned for, I think, if I'm remembering right, 30 years. So these tanks have been used for years, and they put these Polish workers in there to clean them out and do some modifications, and gave them protective clothing, but not external oxygen. The Norwegian workers who were working on another project in the vicinity, they were given protective clothing and external oxygen. So they sent these guys down into this tank that was, they estimate, around 50 degrees Celsius, really hot. Like, what is that,
50
130 or something?
Oh.
It's hot. Anyway, so and they only worked a half hour each because it was very, very hot. And it turned out that they all got exposed to mercury when they were in mercury vapor when they were in there. And mercury vapor at 50 degrees is, best way to maximize your toxicity. Yeah. So there was mercury in that tank that had somehow, they breathed in, and they all got toxic. And this company had taken blood tests before and after they sent them in, and the blood tests showed after the fact that they had all received acute mercury exposure. They had all left and gone home. None of them had any symptoms really, but they were told to come back and go to the hospital, and their levels were quite high as well. But as we know, when you get mercury toxicity, it takes a while for the symptoms to come. But
But
the
what is,
point was
how
they
long did
didn't.
they work in there? Was it after a half hour of exposure, then they tested their blood?
They were done in a couple of weeks. And
Wait,
how long they were in the tank each is, I don't know. It doesn't go into detail in that, but what it does say is that there were 9 of them, and they were working an 8-hour day and a half hour each. So do the math. It's not very long they were in there, but that's
it's
long enough
interesting
to get really toxic.
that they
So then
test.
they called them back to Norway, and then they treat them. They didn't say how they treated them, but what they said was it was an IV and tablets afterwards. And I've done a little bit of
Told me, yeah.
I've dived a little bit down that rabbit hole, and how they treat the standard of care in Norway for acute mercury poisoning is to treat with an IV with DMPS
And,
and several IVs until you bring down mercury levels in the blood, and then follow that up with DMSA capsules.
okay.
And it doesn't really say, but what protocol they follow. But we know from what Andy has said and experience that any kind of chelation IV is just going to make you sick. And that what was interesting also and sad was all of these workers became much more ill when they were in the hospital, but they sent them home with lower levels in their blood, because
We're
obviously it
done.
was
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. So it's a huge thing in the news in Poland because the
Polish.
media there has blown it up, but the media in Norway is, I don't know, I can't speak for them, but they're definitely not speaking very much about it. And there was somebody who was mentioned in there in the story in the paper here about she was Polish, and she's a politician here as well. So I contacted her and I told her about the anti-Cutler protocol and
Okay.
put them up in contact with the Facebook group. I haven't heard anything else, but I found it's just interesting to talk about. But it's tragic that still happens.
So what they probably need to do is do DMSA orally every 4 hours for 3 months, and then do alpha lipoic acid for however long it takes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I can't
Exposure.
remember what Andy said to do for acute exposure.
Well,
Other than his rule is to wait 4 days after for
after
things
an
to
exposure, yeah.
yeah, and then do DMSA or DMPS capsules for 3 months, and then do the alpha lipoic acid. But then the other thing that I think about when I see the stories, do they have amalgams? There's people there from their 30s to their 50s and 60s.
They probably have amalgams too, so they have to
Yeah.
get a lot of expensive dental work and be very and then follow the
Yeah.
protocol.
And the ones who are older maybe have either dental, amalgams, or have more mercury. They are getting
Well,
sicker.
they may recover somewhat on their own.
Yeah, they might. They might. Yeah.
Their symptoms will probably abate on their own.
They stabilize. Yeah.
What, yeah. But then, like 30 years later, it comes and kicks you in the butt. Yeah.
Yeah, but none of them were able to work. That's how sick they are.
Okay.
None of them.
Yeah.
Right. And so, well, okay, maybe it does. Maybe things normalize enough that some of them can work. I don't think, by the sound of it, that some. I don't. I think there are some that won't be able to work again ever. That's
Right.
what it looks like. Yeah. And they're painting a careful picture because, the Norwegian media doesn't want Norwegians to look that bad either, do they?
Yes.
Mhm. So I don't know. So just, we'll see what happens. But it's frustrating when you read that that they're getting sicker
Yeah.
from the ignorance. And the doctor, the lead doctor for this team that's treated them, just admits they don't really know what they're doing. I think that's bizarre to hear.
Well, that you
But it's
don't,
good news too, because at least they're admitting it. Sorry.
well, you don't hear about industrial exposures very much anymore. This is an anomaly.
We're told this, that it's an anomaly, but things like this make me start to think, well,
Maybe it
really? Is
happens
it?
a lot. Yeah.
Hmm. Like, what are they called? CFLs? These,
Most the light bulbs,
yeah, the light bulbs that contain mercury.
wiggly light bulbs, yes.
Yeah, so they were banned. I mean, the EU basically forced Europe to use them, because they wanted to, because it would, they would save so much energy. So everybody was forced to use them. And who complied with that most was businesses, right? They were then banned from, I think it was 2023, and both businesses and people, but people have been getting rid of them, slowly but surely as they don't work anymore, and they have these containers at every grocery store where you can go in and you can see, right? And so that's one way of contaminating people.
They
But
just put them in there.
yeah, they just took them in, and it's right next to where you put your bottles to get your deposit. Like Norwegians have the highest amount of I think anyway, a very high amount of deposits. Like most of the bottles get delivered for deposit, and
Norwegians
that's
compliant, huh?
they're very compliant. Yeah, so they're standing there happily, thinking they're helping society and breathing in this mercury. You
They're
know,
waiting in line next to the Mercury
yep, yep.
Mercury fountain.
And the people who are most or the businesses they all started doing this en masse in 2023. And I was in a mall not far from here, and the mall was built so that there was like a hallway in between two sections. And you could go into the hallway, and all the trash is put there. For all I know, all malls are built like this. But I went in and looked, and all the refuse that they collected was put in there and processed, and then did it really well. So that everything was kind of sorted and all that. And then they had these massive containers with bags in it full of broken bulbs full of mercury. So the whole area was full of that. So
Vapor. It's making me
it's
think of this client I had, this guy, he he was he was really mental, he had a lot of mental illness problems. And I talked with him quite a lot. And he told me that he had a job standing in front of a conveyor belt, picking, like sorting through trash. It
mm-hmm.
was like a recycling, and there were these, yeah, broken CFL light bulbs coming through all the time. Yeah.
That was his job, yeah, and he got sick from that. Well,
That,
I after I experienced this, like I called the leader at the local dump, the largest one, and I talked to him about this, and he was like, "I never really heard about this." I said, "Well, what do you do when they have a room, and I've been to see the room, and if you go into that room, it's the same as at that mall. They collect it all in these big baskets, basically, with a plastic bag, and then when it's full, they have a machine that pulls it up and cinches it all together. But half of the bulbs are broken." And I'm like, "Well, where do you think that mercury goes?" And he goes, "Well, we open the window," and I says, "Well, it's what happened, and then what? What do you think happens to it?" "Well, I guess it gets blown." "What do you mean you guess?" I says, "What do you think mercury is?" I don't really know. It's something not good. I says, "He
don't
doesn't
even
even
know.
know."
Doesn't
So I
even,
explained it to him. They explained it to him, and he was just like, "What the actual fuck?" And a year later, they closed the whole thing, and they've been renovating the whole place for almost a year and a half now. I don't know if it's because of that or what, but it's absolutely crazy.
I
So
would,
and so back to this thing about these workers, it's like,
yeah.
you said it's not very often that you hear about acute exposure. I'm starting to think, well, maybe because the ignorance is so advanced,
So
right?
we always hear that doctors are trained to pick up acute exposures, but I guess they just aren't anymore.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Like there was a measles outbreak, and I think it was in London, and they were talking about it in some local, some national paper, and doctors didn't recognize it because they weren't used to
I
it.
haven't seen it
And so
yet.
the angle was that this is because of anti-vaxxers and all that, but the other reality is that they don't know how to treat it.
Well, I've been saying that quite a lot that the doctors are going to have to learn how to treat infectious diseases again. You know,
Yeah,
Andy said that if they put a moratorium on vaccines, and then it would take about 7 years or something for the infectious diseases to come back, and in the meantime, all the pediatricians would go bankrupt,
yeah,
waiting for actual sick kids to show up again that they could treat. And they'd
yeah,
have to learn, have to learn how to treat all these diseases again.
yeah. So there's
Better be treat
several
infectious
sides of it.
diseases to have, and then have the whole, all these cohorts of kids totally batshit and have autism too, this
Yeah,
pain.
totally. So like I was whooping cough is a big thing, right? Whooping cough is just endemic now. It's like it's everywhere, and they're like, you have to get the vaccine. You have to get the vaccine. You have to get the
Vaccine
vaccine.
doesn't work.
Well,
The,
it does work. It suppresses symptoms, right? So if you give
oh,
whooping
right,
cough to a
right,
baby,
yeah.
right?
I
So,
just-
but it also what it does is like you'll carry it, and you will be don't have symptoms, so then you'll pass it on. So because of that, whooping cough is everywhere.
My daughter
The
got,
only way of not getting symptoms for a child anyway is to vaccinate, and then it just
that's what
what
it
did
is,
you say?
expresses the symptoms. My daughter got it. She'd had, I think it's 3 shots, and she'd had two or she'd had one. She was a little girl, who was in India. And
Mm.
I didn't know what it was. She had this horrible cough and would cough up all this phlegm. And I took her to the pediatrician there, and they didn't know what it was either. Isn't that funny? And finally, I took her to this old grouchy old pediatrician in the hospital in Breach Candy, and he looked at me and he said, "You didn't vaccinate her, did you? She has whooping cough." But I had vaccinated her. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't cover everybody. That's the other thing. So so if you just look at that objectively, okay, so the vaccine actually causes the whooping cough to spread more because everybody who gets the vaccine, a lot of them or most of them have no symptoms, so they go to school and they give it to everybody else, and
That's what they're
they
saying.
get it.
They
Mhm.
just had a
Like
they
I've probably had it when I was a kid because I know I wasn't vaccinated. I wasn't vaccinated for anything, and so I have natural immunity. But nobody has natural immunity anyway because everybody's vaccinated up the wazoo.
Well, Rachel does.
There you go.
Measles
So
too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, she got the measles, and it never occurred to me to take her to the doctor. I mean, she was
no,
healthy. She lived through the measles all right, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Most people do, and yeah, the narrative is
Oh
it's
yeah,
not
it's
about
terrible,
health. It's about
terrible
scaring.
how
It's
they.
not the health system. It's the
I think
scaring
people
system.
are buying into it a lot less, though. They just had a meeting in the States, and they finally banned thimerosal completely from all vaccines. Did you know that? No more flu shots or anything with thimerosal in it. Nothing. I don't
Yes,
know, I
but
don't know what they're doing for
that
the third world, because they had a dispensation for the third world.
well, yeah, but the problem is that is in regard to added thimerosal,
Yes,
right?
I know. I asked, yeah, there's those trace amounts. Yeah.
So
It's
the
like
trace
no added
amounts
sugar.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so the trace amounts they can't actually do anything about because the system that they use to produce these is set, and the whole machinery, the whole process, and all of the documentation, it has to follow that. Otherwise, they have to formulate a new vaccine, and that takes developing a new one. So they're not going to do that because money, right? So what they're saying is instead of using a thimerosal as an adjuvant, we're going to use something else as an adjuvant, and then people are lulled into it's kind of like when you buy potato chips and it says this can contain traces of nuts, and but there's no nuts in it, but it contains a shitload. It could be a shitload of nuts. You don't know, right? it's because they're using nuts in the factory, right? So, and it's the same with like when Andy first said, well, it's that number that they're telling you, 50 micrograms of the thimerosal. That's if the doctor shakes the vial properly every single time. That's the average what you'll be getting. But maybe he doesn't for the first, well, like 9 people who get the dosage, and then you're the last person. You get all of that mercury. And even though there are strict regulations in place for manufacturers to document not only how much thimerosal they put in, but how much thimerosal they take out. I've worked in the industry. It's, they fudge stuff all the time, all the time.
Well, at least they're going to stop giving the damn thimerosal to pregnant women and babies, which they were doing.
Yeah, yeah. But they're replacing it with aluminum.
Aluminum, yes.
Which is not as bad. But it's like, why can't they come up with something that's not going to make people insane?
I think that we
better
might
idea.
have a moratorium on all of them and deal with infectious diseases again. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if a vaccine works, that's great. But if it doesn't, then it's making people sicker, and it's like there's another vaccine Kennedy was talking about that works against the actual disease that it's supposed to protect from. But the problem is it messes up your immune system, and then people die of the other things. It's like,
Well, that
okay,
was the DTaP or the DPT vaccine in Africa that
yeah,
Abe, he was this Danish scientist found out about. And he had the integrity, even though he was all, super duper pro-vaccine, he had the integrity to realize that um, it was causing a lot of all-cause mortality, even though people weren't dying of diphtheria, pertussis, or tetanus. The kids
yeah,
weren't dying of those things, but they were dying of all kinds of other things.
and especially girls.
Yes, especially girls. Yes.
Mm.
That's
So
convenient.
that's the problem. And so as long as the whole, vaccine
They
debate is
probably had they probably
squashed,
had thimerosal and then the DTP. Doesn't that
yeah,
have thimerosal in it? Yeah, and
yeah,
they didn't take it out at all for the third world. They got a dispensation for that. They said, well, we won't be able to, keep our fabulous preventive, public health programs going if we have to take thimerosal out of these vaccines. So that's my big question, like it's something I've been observing in Jamaica, which is really horrifying. Like, you see the older generation, people my age and people my husband's age, like they live to be 102,
mhm,
and now the little kids are showing up with autism. I see a lot
yeah,
of it's because they bought into the American public health.
yeah. It's like Bill Gates was saying today in a speech. Cheap vaccines that cost 30 cents a piece. Yeah, well, it's a cheap investment to make somebody sick for the rest of their life.
Oh.
Mm. So, but I mean, hopefully, Kennedy manages to, because the problem is the debate is so weighted in favor of big pharma and money, basically, and it's
Yeah, he's
just
getting
people
criticized a
people
lot.
are
Yeah, he's getting criticized a lot for not, like eviscerating the blob, you know. But I say if you do that, you're gonna drown in a writhing mass of steaming blob viscera. If you
yeah,
try to just cut it open with one, kill it with one fell swoop, you got to take it to pieces
yeah,
slowly.
yeah, yeah. And he's I've listened to a lot of different podcasts where he's talked about that, and he's got a hammer, but he's also got a lot of nails. So that's his long-term plan is to reconstruct rather than just to destruct, and I think that's good. But I
Decon
mean, I think that yeah. So I think the problem is well, he says that the problem is just that this system is set up to give maximum profit to these big pharma, and science is squashed. And they call him a conspiracy theorist and all sorts of things. And he refers to science all the time. I mean, come on, he can say things, exaggerate it, say something rhetorical or exaggerate something to push a point as well. But basically, he really tries to adhere to science, and
I think
I think that's going to help.
patience
That's
of
what's going to push his agenda forward.
he's very he's really restrained and you know, patient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He prays every morning. So
yeah. His hero is Sisyphus.
yeah. His hero is
So, but that Sisyphus, yeah, he envisions himself as Sisyphus,
just doing
getting
it
up and
because
doing.
it has to be done, just pushing at it. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I mean, I'm speculating, but I think, okay, that's good. That's kept you going, right? But it's also a toxic kind of thing because I mean, I think he's toxic. I mean, obviously he is.
He is
He's
obviously, yes.
yeah,
He's in great
and
shape though. He does a lot of stuff with his health, but I mean, you look at him, he's like got a full body tremor.
yeah, and that thing with his voice. I mean, that's most likely due to that. And he
He
even
says it's from
says that
that. He says it's from that
yeah,
himself. Yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of so when I got really sick, I was in the best shape of my life as well. It's like it's a
Physically.
kind of a paradox, really, because you can be physically in good shape, but then there's all this poison in every single cell, and you get to this point where things don't work like they should in your body, and just you're like, what the hell is happening to me? I mean, that's the classic story. I mean, not everybody is into working out and things like that, right? So, but I've seen plenty of people like Kennedy who are into exercise and working out, eating healthy, and they've got a body tremor, they're shaking, they have there's different things, and I pray every day that Kennedy doesn't get toxic and isn't able to fulfill his project because it's that important, you know. And Andy would say that Kennedy says that a large part of this whole vaccine program is that it ensures that people's immune systems are screwed up, and they have there's no they don't have to make them doing a lot of expensive testing because they're not liable, so they can just make any product they want, put it in, then it's just an income stream for them for every single one they put out there, and
He's
that's why, like, how many are there? 72 shots now, right? But it's not just that. It's the fact that they know that this barrage to people's immune system creates, a constant cash flow because then everybody's sick, and that is the reality. But the problem is that most people think, oh, I'm going to the doctor, I'm getting this vaccine, I'm going to be safe. So Kennedy's a nutcase. I'm going to be safe. I'm going to take all these things, and it's like sheep on a hill jumping off the cliff.
the power of narrative control, but like that saying, you can fool some people all the time, and you can fool all people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And I think it's gonna come apart.
Yeah, that's where we are now. I mean, I was listening to
Mm.
Bernie Sanders on Rogan the other day, and even he is starting to adjust the narrative
I didn't
to
hear,
how
yeah,
the health system is rigged. You know.
because he was a joke at Kennedy's, he was a laughable joke at Kennedy's hearing there,
Yep.
but maybe he started to think about it.
Yeah, and well, he's 83 though, so he could just jump off of jump out of the race. But I think that his like the way he is adjusting his narrative and his tactic now is indicative of what's happening at the grassroots. Because I think a lot of people are starting to see these things. I mean, all the stuff that we get in the media is just the bullshit hype from I call them big fuck yeah, big ag and big pharma and all these people. They're all together. It's just big fuck yeah. They are behind all this crap that we read in the news, and everybody who just want to go about their life and work and raise a family, they're like, scared shitless. But the grassroots, there's a lot of people, like you said, that are just starting to get this is fucked up. This has to change. So think it. I mean, I know it will get there, but it's a ways yet, and I just
A
hope
lot of
Canada
people that think,
makes it.
like it's just shit happens and that's, they're sick because it runs in their family. You know, a lot of people
Yeah,
just think that way.
mm, yeah. I mean, it does run in their family, but the alternative. I mean, the I like Andy's explanation of it. What runs in the family is the ability for your body to deal with the toxins, the mercury, the heavy metals. That's what runs in your family. Like, I mean, I should be dead. I mean, every single tooth in my mouth was like had at least two fillings. I had 56 fillings put in 3 months. 56.
How old
It's
were you
like
when that happened?
I was 15. And pretty much within, you know, weeks, I started to feel things happening. But you're told, no, you're just a crazy 15-year-old punk who is misbehaving, things like that. But yeah, but I mean, anybody else, even the dentist who did it said, I shouldn't really, this is maybe a bit much, but, we're just going to have to do it, He didn't give a shit. He probably bought himself a kitchen with the money he made off of that.
He's probably
But,
dead.
oh, he's dead. He died of cancer 2 years ago. Had painful cancer for a long time, thank God. And he deserved it. He was insane. He was like, because the Novocaine didn't work on me either. So he would be like, if you don't shut up, because he'd been in the military, says I'm going to bring in a gas bomb and I'm going to gas bomb. I mean, like he thought he was funny, right? He was going to beat me up and all sorts of stuff. Guy was batshit. I mean, he was insane, and they were mixing the mercury in their hands.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Right? They were mixing it. They would take out the powder and then they would put a dropper and they would mix it in their hands. That's just how bad it is. So, and then the dentist that I've used ever since here in Bergen has said that was actually, there's no law against it, he says, but it was unethical to put that much. So I should be dead, but I'm not. So I have my body has a good capacity for at least dealing with it so that I don't die. But and but if I
A long
hadn't
time to
found,
kill you.
excuse me,
It takes a long time to kill you.
yes, but if I hadn't found the Cutler protocol, I wouldn't be here now.
Are you?
I
Yeah.
mean, if I would have been alive, it would have been unaware. I'd be in an institution somewhere.
Okay.
That's how bad. Yeah.
I
So
told you about the guy in the elderly housing, the who was in the army, and they prophylactically drilled out his teeth and filled them with amalgam. By the time, like he was in his late 70s or something, in this place I was living in, he got bipolar and or schizophrenic or something, and he went off his meds and freaked out, and the police shot him and killed him right on my right on my
excuse me. Yeah, you told me about that, and
yeah. And
and
nobody put two and two together about that. It's pretty obvious to me what was wrong with him.
yeah, yeah.
I'm laughing, but it was horrible. Yeah.
My the father of my girlfriend, when I was at that time, I talked to him a couple of years back, and he had all of his teeth filled, not prophylactically when he was in the military, but just so the dentist could learn how to fill teeth. He didn't have one cavity.
Oh, so they were just practicing on him.
Yeah, he
Oh,
said, you are going to get all your teeth filled with amalgam. He's going to do it, and
and it's
that's what
going
he
to be
did.
stronger and better. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And he lost all of his teeth in his 50s, and I says, well, lucky you, because after that you didn't have the amalgam in it. So he seems all right now, but it's absolutely nuts. But I mean, but my dentist that I use now, he said he's had patients come in and they've had only one amalgam, and they've been so sick they have had to go to the hospital. And I said, well, what did they do? And he says, well, they took it out, and they were okay, but their health never really was restored. It's not going to. I mean, yes, it's not going to be. In a lot of cases, things can stabilize, and it's not acute, but your life is destroyed, and And I think it's as I chelate, it's kind of like levels of health coming back, and it's levels of cognizance,
I'd say
understanding,
you look kind of different since the last time I talked to you, even.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just bizarre how things are getting, how things slowly but surely improve.
You
And
know,
yeah,
oh, I'm going through the whole thing from the beginning myself. I told you I was
yeah.
for
You're
10
you're re-kicking this thing.
years. Like I say, well, at least since I'm doing this professionally, like I know everything that can possibly happen to a person. I've been there and done it. And my,
Yeah,
and my main advice to people is, yeah, use the color protocol. It's the only thing that makes any sense, but don't make mistakes.
yeah.
Don't make
But
any mistakes.
it's hard not to make a mistake,
Mistakes
really,
are easy
because
to do, yeah.
yeah. Like just take that example with that with the Mercury bulbs. I can't remember. I can never remember what they call CFL bulbs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, every time you go to the shop to do that, to bring back your deposit, or every time you go to the shop, you are running risk of getting poisoned every single time in Norway, anyway. And okay, let's say you're chelating. Well, that risk is even higher then because then you're having a delivering agent for delivering it straight to your brain,
Yes,
you know, things
true.
like that. And it's like, you can never really know. So yeah, shit happens. But
In a
I
lot
guess
of
the thing with the cutler is you have the tools to recognize it.
and you have the tools to get it out of yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
safely. Yeah. But like these people these Polish workers who were treated in the hospital here, that was a guarantee that they're going to get sicker, and they did. You and I know that, right? But these people have no idea what they're doing.
Joanne told me to look up that WHO paper from the the people in Iraq who ate the seed grain that had been treated with mercury to see how they treated them. But I couldn't find the paper. It's a
Right.
famous paper. Yeah. I don't know
I'll
what
look it up
how
myself.
they treated them. Maybe you can find it. I don't know if it's in there.
Well,
I read the paper a couple of times, but it was a long time ago.
well, DMPS and DMSA were both developed to deal with heavy metal toxicity,
They're around a long time.
um, but the half life was never really understood. But I'm sure it did help. It must have helped some people since it's still around.
Well,
So
acute, treating people for acute exposures is really different from what we know about. I mean, we know back and forth 100% how to handle chronic exposure, but acute
mm,
exposure is a whole other kettle of fish,
yeah,
isn't it? I just don't know what you do for that. But
I'm not sure.
I asked
From
Brock what the protocol was, and it said, what this lady did, DMPS IVs, and then DMSA, you know, because the DMPS
yeah,
IVs
but
would go after what's in the blood, right? Wouldn't it clean out the blood, or would make
well,
it?
the idea, yeah, that's their goal is to get down the levels in the blood. So what they do is they run the IV, and that DMPS will capture the mercury, and it will deposit it into the excretion organs, which are the liver and the kidneys, and then hopefully it would then exit the body in stool and urine. But who's measuring that? And we know from Andy that what happens actually is that the kidney and the liver then become overwhelmed, and then that mercury is stored there, and they get sicker. And then it's that it starts this whole chain with the adrenals and everything. And so yes, it brings down the mercury in the blood because it was then deposited faster
Redistributes it
in
to a lot of places. Yeah.
yeah. So I guess the only way to really understand how much mercury is actually being excreted is to actually measure it. And nobody's doing that as far as I know.
Well, people are, I mean, there are these There's that famous study that everybody's talking about to prove that ethyl mercury is not poisonous or not very poisonous because it comes out in the urine by itself. But they're
Or
not
no, it
measuring
doesn't
how
come out. It
much.
comes out in Europe. It comes
But they
out in
don't,
the urine, and then it's not in the blood after a really short time.
yeah, but
That's what they
they
found
don't
out.
know where it went because it actually went into your brain. But no,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no.
So, but Kennedy's take on that is that they actually should have known.
Well, yes, they're supposed to be
Hmm.
scientists. We
Yeah.
depend on them to know stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So my question is, do they? You know?
Do they know anything?
Yeah. I mean, some people do, but I'm saying, do they know? I mean, is it being said, just to, snowball people? Is it to obfuscate? To say, oh, it's gone. It's not in the, we don't know where it is, but it's not in the urine anymore. Well, no, because it,
It's not in
it
the blood
crosses the blood
anymore.
blame.
Gone from the blood. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's still in, well, where is it?
Yeah.
That's what they don't do. And so then my question is, are they complete idiots? If you're going to take something out of the body, wouldn't you want to find out how much is actually being taken out of the body? I mean, everybody knows that mercury is eventually sequestered. Not everybody, but the scientists know that mercury is eventually sequestered in cells and crosses into the blood, into the brain. So, you know, doing proper science to show how much is excreted versus how much, like how much is DMPS or other chelators are administered. I mean, you would want to find that balance. And everybody,
Measuring it coming out in they were
hmm?
measuring it. I mean, they were measuring it coming out in the urine, but they don't know how much went into the brain as well. I mean, it doesn't matter how
No, no,
much
no.
goes out in the urine if some of it goes into your brain. Doesn't
Well,
matter.
yeah, that's my point. And these
Yeah, yeah.
these Polish workers who they were measuring the amounts in their blood. Okay, well, what they've shown is that there's nothing left in
Well,
the
it's
blood.
gone now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but they're not saying where it went. And
Yeah.
if you have a patient and you do that and you say, well, there's no more in your blood, you're fine. But your patient got sick when you did that. You have to be retarded to not actually come to the conclusion that, okay, that mercury went somewhere else.
Well, I don't think the doctor knows what to do. She said she didn't.
That's my point. Yeah.
Probably feels bad about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously. But I mean, you got to be a little bit stupid, especially if you're a doctor and you're trained to think about these things scientifically. If you are, I don't know if they are.
No, not
You
much.
should be asking yourself that question. You're like, what is she telling herself? If I had done this, then they would have got sicker. That must be what she's telling herself, you
Yeah.
know. But she should be saying, okay, why did they get sicker? Why did they come in here and they didn't have symptoms and we treated them, they got sicker and we sent them home and now none of them can work. That's what they should be asking, But somebody somewhere doesn't give a shit. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's her, but somebody.
I think that the an underlying theme in everything that we're seeing is that quotation from Upton Sinclair. Like it's really difficult to get someone to understand something when their livelihood depends upon their not understanding it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the good thing about what Kennedy's, bringing about now.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
think on that, I think that's a good place for us to stop here.
mm.
Yeah.